Hey y'all, welcome to QT Talks. My name is Q, as many of you know, but for the sake of this channel, I want you to call me Quest because you never know where we're gonna go. Now, I mean that metaphorically, as of course, if you know me, you know that I'm a very type A, super planned person. And I really want you to tune into my channel, listen to my videos so that you can walk away with something that's actually valuable and impactful to your life. And hopefully, you can start to incorporate some of the ways that I think about things or just something that you might learn in the various topics that we'll get into. But I really wanted to set the stage for this first video talking about my why, right? You know, there's tons of YouTubers out there, but there's none that are Q, none that are Quest, right? And I really just wanted to express how grateful I am for the community that I already have on Twitter and Instagram. And, you know, a few months ago, I shared a purchase about my new car, which is the Audi Q8 e-tron. A little bit of hell. We'll get into that in another episode. But through that, obviously, I had a lot of people reaching out saying congrats and giving me all these anecdotes around like how proud they are of me and like, wow, Q, you're always killing it. You're always doing these big things. And I literally had a moment where I kind of just sat there and I was just like, yeah, this doesn't feel like the full story, right? Because for me, that purchase was so much bigger than just buying my next dream car. It really took me back to when I got my first car from my dad and me being gay and how that completely changed our relationship. But I was already set at this standard in life that I wanted to maintain. And so it really ignited this fuel and fire in me, you know, since I was 18, 19, to really make sure that I'm putting in the work to get the life that I deserve. Now, through this channel, we'll be talking about a lot of that. Rather it be around my career, around fitness. Really, the big theme is going to be mental health and how I have constantly faced that person in the mirror to unpack, you know, the things that I felt like were holding me back from a mental perspective, an emotional perspective, hell, even a financial perspective at times. And I'm just really excited to go through this journey with you all. So I hope you also like my setup. Behind me, I got a commission about my life that was actually done from a local South Florida artist right before I moved to Baltimore a few years ago. To my left, we have Nico. Hey. My 7-year-old Bombay cat, my first child. And then to my right, we have Bakari. Hey, Bakari. He's a poodle, and as y'all know, they are very stubborn, and he's being very stubborn right now. All right, so I started this video off, you know, obviously talking about my why, but I think it's really important to talk about what that car story really did, right? So back in January, after dealing with a ton of fucking problems with my BMW that I had at the time, I was like, you know what, it's time to sell the bitch, get an EV, you know, take advantage of free charging at work, take advantage of free charging at my apartment, and go and get an EV. So the Audi Q8 was always one of my dream cars. Hey, Nico, you gonna join us? Okay. It was one of my dream cars. And when I saw that it came in the e-tron, I was like, oh, like this is perfect, right? You get these tax rebates and all these things, yada, yada, yada. None of that was the case. And we'll get into that in a topic where I really talk about the car buying experience. But really the thing that I want to talk about is that again, when I was sharing about my car and you know everybody's reaching out and all these things, right? I really felt a sense to go deeper, to really show people, and especially with me being part of Gen Z and having siblings who are Gen Z watching my stories and stuff, like I think it's really important to talk about how we actually get places, right? I think a lot of times influencers they get online and they post all the good, never the bad, right? And I think everybody should have a little bit of a sense of redacting their lives and just posting online, right, for some level of privacy. But I think that when we are posting the good, rather it be a promotion at work or a new purchase, or you just got this bust down AP, or you constantly on trips and stuff like that, it's like, why don't you talk to people about how do you make this attainable, right? Like, let's get real and really unpack those things. And so two themes that you're going to constantly hear throughout my YouTube channel is like, let's unpack that and facing the person you see when you look in the mirror. Those two crucial elements have been key for me into all of the success that I've been able to achieve thus far in my life. And what I'm going to continue to do, because learning is a lifelong journey, right? And so I want to be able to continue doing that as I go through this channel with you all, really guide and showing you all exactly what I'm doing in all of these different facets of my life. So when I posted about the car and everybody's giving the congrats and reaching out stuff like that, like I just felt like, okay, like let me really talk about why this purchase meant so much to me. When I was 18, my dad bought me my first car, dream car, BMW 550, and I was in love with it, right? And so, already I kind of grew up driving like Porsches and Audis and Infinities and stuff like that. Anywho, my dad bought me my first car when I turned 18 back in 2016, and it was the BMW 550, my dream car. Starting off with that as my first car really set the standard for me in terms of like luxury and what do I want and things like that, right? And I knew that when I graduated from high school, like later that year, I was going to go to college and I was going to go be a lawyer and I was going to go make all this money and be able to keep living this great life. Of course, I went to college. I did not become a lawyer. And throughout college, right, I had a lot of tumultuous experiences. And really, one of the big ones was going to therapy, right? Because I grew up in such a toxic and traumatic environment that got normalized. But like when I got to college and started to meet like more people from different stages of life and places, it's like I was like, wait, my life is not normal. And I need to stop normalizing it. So I went to therapy throughout the years, right? Like obviously unpacking those things based on the person in the mirror, I got into a position where I became very comfortable with who I am as a gay black man in America. And I stopped hiding that because of the fact that I was able to financially take care of myself. And that was always one of the biggest fears for me growing up is that if my dad found out I was gay or if I came out too early, like I would be cut off and, have the story of a lot of gay black men, especially that I hear about growing up where you just get cut off from your family. And so like that always kept this hunger in me to go really, really hard in school working two, three jobs while I was full time in school and constantly just building this brand and building this community that I hadn't experienced really ever in my life until I went to college. Eventually, I ended up having to get a new car, right? And it's like, okay, how do you go from a BMW to not, right? Like, I'm not even going to shit on any other type of car because it's like, a car is a car at the end of the day, but like, I was used to BMW. I love BMW. I love the way they were engineered. And so I was like, well, I need to go buy my next car. My dad isn't going to do it for me because one, I'm cut off. And, the guy that I was dating at the time actually offered to buy me a car, but I didn't want him to have that type of control over me. And I mean, he was 11 years older, right? So it was just already a very weird, toxic situation. And that'd be a whole nother episode. Um, but I had built up my credit, right? I had built up my savings and built up the financial history to be able to go and buy another BMW 5 Series. Now, I didn't get a 550 again because if you know the MSRPs of those cars, it's crazy. But I was able to make as smart of a decision, getting it during the pandemic, getting a very low interest, getting a certified from the dealership, and that was my next car. That car lasted me for about almost 5 full years until this year, where I got the Audi Q8, and I'm in a much different position and just situation in life. And I was able to go in, didn't even have to prove how much I made. They just fucking gave me the car basically. Um, and so, but through that, right, I think it was really sharing the car, sharing the journey of like what it was like, getting that first car from my dad, being cut off, having to put all this pressure on myself in my early 20s to try to maintain this image, this lifestyle. And then as we'll talk about, right? Really facing that person in the mirror, seeing that I've accomplished all these things, that I've achieved, all of these goals that I set. Yeah, I wasn't really happy when I looked in the mirror when I bought that second BMW, right? But now at, 26 years old and I'm looking in the mirror and I'm buying this next gen car and I'm buying all these other big purchases that we'll talk about. It's like, I'm really proud of what I see when I look in the mirror simply because of the fact that I'm actually doing shit for me now. But it took a lot of facing that person in the mirror, unpacking those things in therapy and really being committed to growth that has really gotten me to where I am today. Yeah, so a lot of this YouTube channel that I'm, creating is really going to be about facing that person in the mirror and how unpacking the things that we inherit and we normalize, right? Like how do we get to a point where we can really understand what that means for our lives and how can we use that to really help us shape the future and the lives that we want, right? That's how I live my entire life and it's never going to stop. And so I think now is a really great time to spend some time with you all and really talking through like how have I built my career? How have I gone to therapy? Yeah, so again, a lot of why I'm starting this is because I realized that a lot of people are always sharing about the end part of the journey, but never really how they got there. And so a lot of this is going to be me sharing with you from things that I've accomplished, how I actually got there, what I went through emotionally, financially, socially, intimately, right? And as I continue to go through things, like let's go through it together, right? I think within the Gen Z generation, we really need to be real with each other, right? Like I grew up, I'm a 98 baby, right? So it's like kind of 90s, kind of not, where I got to grow up with no internet and no social media, but then also grow up with it for a majority of my life. And so I know what it's like to touch grass, and I periodically do it because I think it's super important. And when we're constantly on social media, we're seeing people that are always posting the great things in life and the aesthetic like things, but they never really talk about how they get there or if they even got there themselves. And so, because I can speak to so much of the life that I've truly built through my efforts, through my intrinsic motivation, like I want to share that with you all for those of you who are seeking to take control of your life and set those healthy boundaries. With that, I really want to make sure that we're understanding too that like it starts with you, right? When I had just graduated college, first generation, the first out of all of my siblings, just crossed Alpha, Trade Club, Fall 20, Upsilon Beta, shout out, and I had started my first business, Q Juice, where my goal was simply just to bring healthy and affordable juice options to Black and Brown communities because the pandemic started in a period where we had a very interesting administration and they weren't doing things for the Black and brown communities, and everybody was just posting all these black squares and just saying shit but not doing nothing. And so I started that business, and I'll talk about what that journey was like as well, right? But it got to a point literally in March of 2021 where I wrote one of my first journals that I will share with you all, where I just wasn't fucking happy. I had all of these accolades, I had all of these accomplishments, like again, on social media, my life looked great. I'm traveling. I got a nice body. The niggas are on me. But I wasn't happy. Like, I was not proud of the guy that I saw when I looked in the mirror. And because when I was in my solitude and alone and really feeling the weight of that, I decided to journal about it and start to try to understand like how can I actually fix that, right? How can I fix those voids that are in me that need to be solved by me? And that's what led me to therapy, right? Being able to understand what did I want to get out of myself and using tools and research, etc., to help me unpack the shit that I needed to unpack so that I can face that person in the mirror. Therapy is really a lot of the start of this journey because it truly helped me to understand who I am and why, right? And a why in terms of like, why do I operate or why did I operate in the way that I was when it came to family, to friends, to intimate relationships, right? And how by understanding those, rather it be inherent traits or learned behaviors through my environment, how did I understand that and unpack it and set healthy boundaries, right? So that I can actually take back control of my life. Taking control of my life meant going from just trying to survive or just doing shit for, the applause that sometimes I never got from the people that I wanted it the most, to really being able to be like, okay, like, look, I'm doing this for me. I'm doing this because it's something that actually makes me feel good and it fuels my why, it fuels my purpose in this world, right? Starting this YouTube channel is a lot of my purpose and my why because a lot of times I'm mentoring people or I'm sharing insights with people in more intimate one-to-one settings, but I'm just like, I'm going to continue to do that, right? Because it's something that really fuels me. But I just feel like that there's so much more that I can be doing by sharing exactly how I've done things, how I've helped others, and not in a braggadocious way, but truly just to show that like it is so possible when we face those first two things. First, facing that person that you see when you look in the mirror. And second, unpacking that, understanding that, taking control of it. Therapy, as I've mentioned so many times now, right, is really the tool that I started with to really help me understand how to take control of my life. That I feel is what led to me being a first generation college student in my family. That is what's led me to having a very successful corporate and technical career at one of the largest fucking companies in the world, right? That's what's allowed for me to have really genuine long-term friendships that have an average of over 7 years. You know, the relationship, intimate piece, still figuring it out. Don't think it's because I need to talk about it more in therapy, right? But I just think more niggas need therapy. But that's a conversation for a whole other day. I think one of the biggest things that I really want to focus on throughout this journey of this channel is not just focusing on the highlights, not just focusing on the lowlights, but the overall journey. I think too often we have people either trauma bonding on social media, trying to be like, hashtag me too, I'm struggling, I'm going through this, yada, 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 blah, blah. Okay, cool. But like, how do we get there? Let's talk about it. Let's take ownership to the shit that you did to get you there. Are you an internalizer? Are you an externalizer? Are you blaming the world? Do you believe that things are happening to you? Are you an internalizer? And do you look and see what did you do or what could you do better, right? Taking control so that you actually can do something about what you can control. And maybe things are happening for you. Same thing with highlights, right? Not just thinking God or thinking, Jesus Christ or Allah, like because something good has happened. Like, let's talk about how you got there. Let's talk about your faith. Let's talk about your discipline. Let's talk about the inputs that you put in to get to the outputs. And if you can't talk about any of the journeys for the lowlights and the highlights, you should shut the fuck up. I think too many people are just talking about, oh, I had this thing or I did this, whatever, but not talking about how they got there. And that's the problem. And I want to help change that narrative. I think it's extremely important in the Gen Z generation to really understand, like, what does it take to have a six-figure job? What does it take to have financial acumen? What does it take to buy a house, to buy a car that's a good decision financially? You know, what does it mean to have good reciprocal friendships? What does it mean to have a healthy relationship with yourself? What's the journey look like? Right? Not just what does it mean now that I'm there, or what does it look like now that I'm there? How the fuck do you get there? So, as you think about why should I continue watching QT's talks, right? Why should I keep listening to Q talk? Who are really looking to face the person you see when you look in the mirror, take control of your life, and really unpack, rather be with a therapist, in a journal, through reading, through community. One of the things that I promise that you're really going to get from this channel over the course, the next 6 months, the next year, the next 5 years, is really being able to be with people who are wanting to build community around intention, right? I live my life through intention. I'm very, I take a very methodical approach about everything that I do, because at this point, it's like, why would I just be doing shit just to do it? Like, why did I get a cat? Why did I get a dog? It wasn't just because I wanted to be able to post stuff on social media. No, it's because for him, Nico, it taught me how to make a commitment. You know, it's a cat to some people, but that's my firstborn. That's my first love. I step up with you. But yeah, like that's my child, okay? Like, I sacrificed my housing on campus for him, and every time I've had to move or do something, I've had to think about him, and that taught me a level of commitment that I never saw growing up, rather it be from my dad, from my mom, from a sibling, from a you name it, right? The people that you would think are going to be there for you all the time. Like, I didn't learn what commitment looked like until I made the decision to get Nico almost 7 years ago. Bakari, it was after a very tough breakup where I was like, you know what? I'm not trying to rush into another relationship. I'm not trying to be out here on all these niggas' faces. Like, I just want to focus on healing, and I want to focus on patience. For any of you who really know me, like, my patience used to be horrible. I've always had the discipline, but the patience, And getting a very intelligent ass dog, like a standard poodle, required me to have a lot of patience, because they can learn tricks very quick and learn behaviors very quick. But if he don't want to do something, Bakari, he's not gonna do it. But as soon as I say, let's go. See? He know that I'm tricking him because we don't go out this late. Right? But anywho, right? I do things with intention, right? I don't do shit just to do it. And if I say I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it. Period. Like, If you know me, if I say I'm gonna do something, I'm gonna do it. And my biggest ask for you all today is to make sure that you subscribe. Subscribe, subscribe, subscribe. I can't even talk right with this goddamn retainer. My list so bad. But subscribe, subscribe, subscribe. I'm gonna do my best to try to have a video out every week, every 2 weeks. Again, I am a corporate baddie, working in tech at one of the largest companies. So, sometimes I won't have the bandwidth, but I'm trying to be very intentional. So I want to make sure that if I'm saying something, it's something that really is going to be impactful. It's going to be intentional, and it's going to be something you can walk away with like, damn, I'm so glad I spent, those 20, 25 minutes watching, listening to Q.